Fail Better by Colin Grant. Ever tried, ever failed, says the nameless protagonist of Samuel Beckett's Wordsworth Hoe. No matter, try again, fail better. 40 years on, after the book's publication, these words are often rolled out as encouragement by tutors to writers never to give up. The sentiment of this instruction, repeated several times in Beckett's novella, contrasts with what, at first, appears to be its bleak premise, that failure is inevitable. Don't be fooled by Beckett's reputed pessimism. At the heart of Wordsworth Hoe is an argument for the primacy of endurance. You will fail, but you have to go on. There is no choice. Fail better. In May 2024, to give several writers the opportunity to fail, WritersMosaic embarked on a 1-month initiative establishing a retreat at Villa Lugara in northern Italy. The 16th century Casa Canonica, or church farmhouse, is situated at the foothills of the Apennine Mountains in Emilia-Romagna and is surrounded by oak woods which lead to an ancient pathway for pilgrims. A sympathetically restored ruin, Villa Lugara offers a retreat from the fast pace of modern life. Retreat, in one of its meanings at least, might be associated with shame and failure, but a retreat also signals a way out from defeat. A strategic retreat enables the chance to remuster and start again. After all, sometimes you have to go back before you can advance. And the retreat at Villa Lugara allow the writers to reflect on the blockages in their writing and to chart paths of progress. The craft of writing demands the excavation of ideas in words, sentences and paragraphs through trial and error. But fundamentally, the advice to try again, fail better, runs up against the cost of doing so. Few can afford the luxury of the writer who, for instance, having written a sentence in the morning, crosses it out in the afternoon and considers her day's work done. Similar expressions of the supposedly irony-free notion of a successful day's writing having produced nothing, that I've heard over the years on the lips of some of my more indulgent literary colleagues, always cause me to roll my eyes. Some of the same peers have also been known to repeat the dubious aphorism of the critic Cyril Connolly: "There is no more sombre enemy of good art than the pram in the hall." Attending to the care of newborns need not be an impediment to writing. There are countless examples of writers who have recently become parents and yet continue to create. But if not the pram, there are myriad other obstacles to get in the way of the simple business of writing. They include the expensive repair of that leaking roof you've been putting off mending for years, the unpaid bills, and the capitulation to paid overtime, and to the self-generated earworm that whispers to you, "No one's going to read that stuff anyway. Who do you think you are?" A retreat is a relief from doubt. That, at least, was the thinking behind our investment, generously funded by the Hawthornden Foundation at Villa Lugara. We hoped that a month away from home and family would be an adventure in writing. There was always a risk, however, that the successful applicants might be initially terrorized by the spectre of uninterrupted writing. I recall my own writer's paralysis a few years ago when I first signed up as a member of the London Library, an act which promoted me, I mistakenly believed, to the ranks of true author. Dutifully arriving at the library each morning, finding a desk, selecting the right pen, sharpening a pencil more than once, and turning back the cover of my writing pad, I was often intimidated by the tyranny of the blank page and the sound of the non-stop competitive writing of my peers. They tapped away at laptops freely and tauntingly as I dawdled, unable even to manage a sentence in the morning that might be deleted in the afternoon. We didn't want that at Villa Lugara. We did want, however, to foster a collegiate atmosphere, and so it came to pass. We were lucky in the first cohort of chosen writers: Simon Mear, Katie Massey, Clementine E. Burnley, Amanda Villanova, Ishidin, and Peter Kalu. Not only was there an absence of friction between them, but very quickly real friendships emerged. Great claims have been made about how writers' retreats might transform an individual's life, but might there also be communal benefits? We didn't want to encourage the romantic idea of the writer on retreat as a kind of pampered hermit, as depicted in the accounts by the attendees of fabled residencies such as Yardo in Saratoga Springs, New York, with its 55-room Tudor mansion. We wanted to complicate the model of sponsored solitude by providing opportunities for group experiences, including morning yoga beside the outside swimming pool, afternoon strolls through the sylvan beauty of the countryside, treks to local caves, visits to the Opera House at Modena, and socializing with local writers in Parma. At Villa Lugara, breakfast would not be prepared by staff and left on a tray outside each writer's bedroom to avoid disrupting the flow of their writing. Instead, as relayed in their testimonies, the Villa Lugara writers descended eagerly to the kitchen each morning, where their excited interactions and the sharing of delicious food prefaced the welcome return to their work from the previous day. Coincidentally, most writers adopted a Graham Greene-like practice towards the working day. Greene's typing always stopped once it reached 500 words for the day, no matter what, even if the final sentence was incomplete. That sentence would be finished the next day. After a full day of writing, the evenings at Villa Lugara took on a character that was reminiscent of what Trinidadians called liming, the collective fun of just hanging out and doing very little. Encouragement sweetens labour, my mother used to tell me as a child. Liming sweetened the serious but rewarding business of writing, and the results are transparent. The conscientious labour of the 6 writers is evident in their reflections, shared in this guest edition, and in the advance of the works in progress they brought with them to Italy. During his stay at the villa, Simon Mayer completed a draft of a new novel, The Assassination Agency, in which 3 siblings discover their deceased mother had been a contract killer. Clementine E. Burnley fine-tuned chapters of The Stranger's Quarters, her memoir of leaving Cameroon at the age of 17 to head to Scotland. Katie Massey began a novel which built on the formal experimentation of her memoir, Are We Home Yet? Amanda Villanova fleshed out the beginning of a trio of stories based on the lives of 3 generations of Puerto Rican women. Ishi Din completed a first draft of his play Champion, set around Muhammad Ali's visit to South Shields in 1977. His inquiries around matters of race, class and belonging from his fellow scribes were both enlightening to him and food for thought for all of us. Peter Kalu added to his inventive short story collection Green England Haunting, which interweaves colonial stories with the British countryside. All of the writers proved inspiring ambassadors for the group and for each other. In this Writers Mosaic guest edition, they explore the value of writers' retreats and what might be achieved in a month of communal living through concentrated thought and writing. Perhaps if you never try, you never have to worry about failing. At Villa Lugara, we encourage the writers to try to fail. They succeeded.